Howdy y'all, today's lesson is on the domain and range of continuous graphs. We're going to talk about a trick to find the domain and the range. So right now I want you to just fill in the blanks here. What you're going to do for domain is you're going to scan your pencil from left to right along the x-axis, and then for range you're going to scan your pencil from the bottom to the top along the y-axis. So let's talk about that further here in the next slide. Alright, let's do our first problem here. So I want to find the domain first. So I'm trying to find all the possible x values on this V-shaped graph right here. Okay, so there's lots of x values along these lines. There's lots of x values that we can't see either, and I'll talk about that here in a minute. You're going to take your pencil and you're going to go from left to right. Okay, so here's my pencil, my fake pencil here. Go from left to right and stop as soon as you hit the first point. Okay, so I just hit the arrow right here. And I want to stop, okay, because I want to figure out what does that arrow actually mean. What is my very leftmost x value is basically what you're trying to find. And in this case, it means that I've got x values that are going to keep on going and going and going and going all the way out, in this case, to negative infinity, right? Because if you look along my x-axis, these are all negative numbers, okay? So that x, that goes all the way out to negative infinity. I've got an x value out there, which might be like -7, this might be like -10, but if you keep going, you've got x values out to -1,000, all the way out to negative infinity. Okay, so write down your leftmost x value, and then take your pencil and keep on going. So, I'm going to keep on going to the right until I hit the very last point, and stop. So I've got, right now I just hit a arrow again, another arrow. So let's talk about what this arrow means. These are all positive x values. Anything over on this side represent positive x values, okay? So that arrow is going to keep on going in the positive direction all the way out to positive infinity, okay? So write that down. How do I say, we're going to use this thing called interval notation. This graph starts at negative infinity, and x is contained all the way anywhere between negative infinity and positive infinity, okay? So this is what we call interval notation. You could also say that the domain is all real numbers. When you guys get to Algebra 2, you're going to have imaginary numbers, so that's why we say these real numbers. So in the domain, I've got every possible real number is a solution for x. Let's talk about range now. So I want to go from the bottom to the top. So I take my pencil, and I go from the bottom. I haven't hit anything yet. I'm going to stop as soon as I hit the V, and stop. So let's figure out what the y value is down there, because I'm dealing with range now. I don't care about x anymore. So this point, if I were to label it, it would be 0, -2. All I care about is the y value. So -2 is my starting point, and then take that pencil and keep on going here. So take your pencil and keep on going. So till you hit the end. I hit the arrow on the left side, but there's still more graph up here, so I keep on going, and then I hit the arrow on the right hand side. So what this arrow means is the same thing it meant for the domain. So the y value, I've got y values way up here. The y value up here would be like a 5, and then it keeps on going and going and going, right? The y-axis does, and so does this graph. So I've got y values out here that are even higher than that 5, so maybe like 10 or 15 or 20, all the way up to positive infinity. So I'm going to write my interval notation here, and I'm going to put a y in the middle, right, because I'm dealing with range, is less than or equal to positive infinity, okay? So that interval represents all my possible y values there. Another way to write this would be that y is greater than or equal to -2, okay? So you could write that either way. Just like for the domain, you could have said all real numbers. If you're going to use interval notation, which many times you have to because it's bound by two numbers, but if you're going to use interval notation, a trick, if you always go from left to right with the domain, your inequality signs always go this way. And if you're going to go from the bottom to the top with the range, then your inequality signs, again, will go the same way. Okay, so that's a little bit of a trick, and then you don't even have to think about it. All right, let's look at number 2 here. I'm going to try to find the domain, and I'm going to use my trick. I'm going to scan my pencil from left to right here. So I go from left. As soon as I hit that circle, I'm going to stop. Stop. and I'm going to write down that very first x value. So let's figure out, okay, what is our x value at this point right here where the graph just hit my pencil? And in this case, that x value is negative 3, okay? And then I'm going to take my pencil and I'm going to keep on going, and I'm going to figure out, okay, so let's pretend the pencil started here, and I keep on going. I'm still hitting graph. I'm hitting the graph in two locations. I keep on going, and there's the end of my circle. Okay, so there's my rightmost bound. Okay, so write that number down. What is your x value at that point? Okay, if you were to label that point, it would be 3, 0. This one over here would be negative 3, 0. All you care about are the x values because you're dealing with the domain. Okay, so we've got x values that go all the way from negative 3 all the way to positive 3. Okay, all along this circle here, if you were to label all those coordinates, the x values would be somewhere between negative 3 and 3. Okay, that's all that it's saying. All right, let's look at our range. Take my pencil and you go from the bottom to the top. You're going to stop as soon as you hit that circle. Right. Oh my goodness. There. So I hit the circle and I am at, oh my goodness, this video. I am at negative 3 on the y-axis there. So negative 3 is less than or equal to y, which is less than or equal to, we got to figure that one out. So we take our pencil and we're going to pretend that it's the same pencil. Keep on going, keep on going, keep on going, and you stop as soon as you hit the highest point on that, on the y values there, on the y-axis. So looks like I'm at way up here. That's the top of the circle, and that, if I were to label that point, it would be 0, positive 3. All you care about is the y value, so that would be 3 there. So it looks like my domain and range are actually the same, but one is going to have the x in there, the other one's going to have the y. Interval notation. Okay, let's look at number 3 here. So number 3, again, use your trick. You're going to take your pencil and you're going to go from left to right. So stop as soon as you hit that. If you recall from number 1 what that means, you hit an arrow. So in this case, that arrow symbolizes, wow, I can't talk, that this graph goes on and on and on and on forever and ever and ever in the negative direction on my x-axis. So these values up here are going to continue to get further and further in the negative direction. So negative infinity is less than or equal to x, which is less than or equal to. Let's figure that out right now. So take your pencil and keep on going all the way to the end, and I hit an arrow again. Okay, so I went from an arrow to an arrow. You guys are going to hear me say that a lot. Arrow to an arrow means all real numbers. Okay, so this right here, this arrow symbolizes that it keeps on going and going and going, and I've got positive x values. It's just going to continue to get greater and greater all the way out to positive infinity. Okay, another way to write this, again, let me just reiterate this, is by saying all real numbers. Okay, let's look at our range. So for our range, I'm going from the bottom to the top here. So I take my pencil. The first thing I hit is the bottom of that arrow there. You can see I'm with the edge of my little pencil that I'm using. I hit the arrow. Okay, so same thing in this case. So if you look at your y-axis, down here, whoops, let me go back to the pencil. Down here is this y-axis continues to go in the negative direction down below. So that's going to be negative infinity. This time I've got a y in the middle. And then if I keep going with my pencil, so I'm going up, 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 and the last point that I hit is also an arrow there. So these pencils are really small. It's a little clunky of a video. Okay, so I hit an arrow again. That means, so if I were to extend this out here, you could see that the y values would continue to get greater. Okay, so that's going to go all the way to positive infinity. I'm going from an arrow to an arrow again with a range. Alright, number 4, take your pencil, go from left to right, stop as soon as you hit the graph. I just hit the arrow. That means I've got x values that are going all the way to negative infinity. I got to figure out what my rightmost bound is now. Take your pencil and keep on going. Stop as soon as you hit the very last point on the right hand side, and again, that's an arrow. So that means that this graph is going to go all the way, switch over, to positive infinity. Okay, you can also just write all real numbers there. Let's look at the range. You go from the bottom to the top here. So I'm going to make this a little bit bigger. Go from the bottom to the top. Stop. I hit my arrows. Okay, so what does this mean? This means that my y value, so this graph is just going to continue to go on and on and on, and in this case in the negative direction, right? Because y continues to get more and more negative as if you go down further. So that's negative infinity. That's our lowermost bound. And let's figure out what our uppermost bound is here. So switching over, I'm going to take my pencil and I'm going to go up, 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 and I'm going to stop as soon as that parabola, this thing is called parabola, as soon as that graph stops, and it's that very upper end of this upside down U here. So what is that point? All I care about is the y value because I'm finding the range here. So 1, 2, 3, it looks like I'm going up 4, so my x value would be 0 here. My y value would be 4. Again, all you care about is the y value. So your y value would be 4. Okay, so you can write it just like this in interval notation. You could also write it by just saying that y is going to be less than or equal to 4. And that makes sense, right? Because I've got y values that continue in this negative direction here. They get smaller and smaller. The highest y value you're going to have is at the tip of that U, upside down U, and that's going to be a 4. Okay, moving right along here. This is kind of a special case. This is the last example I'm going to do for you guys. So number 9, I've got a vertical graph, and I'm going to follow the same trick that I've been telling you all along. So I'm going to go from left to right here, and I haven't hit anything yet, nothing yet, nothing yet. The first thing I hit is the whole graph, right? I basically just covered the whole graph with my pencil because I've only got one possible domain value here. So let's take a look at what this means. The only possible x value along anywhere on this line, anywhere, is going to be positive 2, right? You could label this point and it would be 2, 0. You could label this point way down here and it would be 2, 5. You could label this point way up here, it'd be 2, sorry, this would be 2, negative 5. It'd be 2, 5 up here. You could keep going. You could label this point because that arrow means it keeps going, and it would be 2, 10 maybe, 2, 100. But no matter what, look at this theme here. X equals 2, okay, because that's the only element of the domain. X will never be anything but 2. Let's look at the range. The range is going to be different here. So your range, you go from the bottom to the top. So bottom to the top, arrow, and then let's keep on going. Arrow. Arrow to arrow means all real numbers, okay? So these y values, they continue all the way on in the negative direction down here, but then they're going to keep on going in the positive direction up there. Okay, so my range is going to be all real numbers. Okay, that was a lot of information here. This is one of the harder concepts, especially in this unit, I think. So I want you guys to go ahead and fill in the rest of the notes here, see what you guys can get through, and if you have questions, please let me know.